I'm Addison.
I still remember the day I confronted my family and my husband's family in that tense living room. The air was thick with anticipation, and all eyes were on me as I opened the leather folder. Every person at that table, my parents, my husband's brother, and their attorney, went pale. Little did they know, I was about to turn their world upside down. My story begins in a small coastal town where the local diner was the heart of the community. I grew up in a family that was constantly on the brink of financial ruin. My parents, Ava and Leo Thompson, were gamblers. They were always chasing the next big win, but more often than not, they ended up deeper in debt. I learned to be self-sufficient from a young age, navigating the chaos of our home life the way a sailor navigates a stormy sea. By the time I was 28, I had worked my way through college, earning a degree in geology from a local university. I landed a job with the state's Geological Survey, mapping mineral formations. It was a quiet, precise job, where the data spoke for itself, and there were no applause, but I loved it. I met Jake at a scientific seminar in the city. He was a software engineer with kind eyes and a smile that could light up a room. We dated for 3 years, and he proposed on a sunny Sunday with a ring he'd saved for 8 months to buy. I said yes before he even finished the question. But the next morning, my world came crashing down. My mother's voice on the phone was the same as always, full of urgency. "We're in big trouble, Addison. Real big trouble." I asked how much, and she said it wasn't just about money. It was about the family's future. She presented a solution. A marriage to a man I'd never met. The Montgomery family, who lived on a large ranch outside of town, had a son, Ethan. He was 33 and had been paralyzed from the waist down in a horse riding accident 5 years ago. His family was offering $500,000 to any woman willing to marry him. My mother showed up at my apartment a few days later, carrying a leather folder filled with photos of the ranch and a letter from an attorney. "Addison, he needs a steady woman by his side. You're perfect for him," she said, tapping the folder as if it were a golden ticket. I was in shock. I told her no, twice. But the third time, she played the guilt card. "After everything we've done for you, this is the least you can do." I sat on the edge of my bed, Jake's ring still warm on my finger, and felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. If I said no, my parents would lose their home and face financial ruin. If I said yes, I'd lose Jake and my dreams of a normal life. I knew what I had to do. I drove to Jake's apartment on the same day he'd proposed. He opened the door with a smile, a cup of coffee in one hand and his laptop under his arm. I sat on the couch and took off the ring, placing it on the coffee table. "I can't marry you, Jake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He was in disbelief, asking what had changed. I couldn't explain the web of family obligations that had ensnared me. The wedding was set for a month later. My mother took charge of the preparations, ordering a simple wedding dress online for $99 and choosing the Montgomery Ranch as the venue. The guest list was limited to immediate family. The night before the wedding, she ironed my dress as if she were sealing a business deal. "You're doing the right thing, Addison," she said, but I knew she saw me as a means to an end. When I arrived at the ranch, Ethan was waiting at the end of the long driveway in his wheelchair. He held an old pocket watch in his hand, a family heirloom. The ceremony was short and silent, officiated by a local justice of the peace. After the ceremony, as the families went inside, Ethan and I stayed on the porch. "Nobody asked you either, did they?"
He said.
Those words cracked the assumptions I had about him. He was far from the helpless man I'd imagined. In the first few months of our marriage, Ethan and I lived in parallel. He spent his days in the study, surrounded by old maps and geology books. I continued my job at the survey office, driving an hour each way. But as the seasons changed, so did our relationship. One summer afternoon, I found Ethan in the barn, fixing a broken water pump. His hands moved with precision, and I was amazed. I asked him how he knew how to do it, and he told me he had a degree in hydrogeology and had worked in the field before the accident. I began to see a different side of him, a man with knowledge and talent that had been hidden. As the months passed, we started to have more in common. We would talk about water tables and clay formations over dinner. He made me laugh, and I made him feel seen. By the end of the first year, I realized that there was more to this land than met the eye. One day, a land agent called from a minerals acquisition firm. He was interested in the subsurface mineral potential of the Montgomery Ranch. I told Ethan, and he revealed that his brother, Ryan, had received a similar call a few weeks ago but had told the agent to call back after some paperwork was finalized. We decided to look into Ethan's father's old files. In a cedar box on the top shelf of the study, we found a rolled survey map, a leather-bound field notebook, a manila envelope, and a glass jar filled with gray clay. The clay had a strange texture, and I recognized it as a potential lithium-bearing claystone. I drove to the survey office early the next morning to cross-reference the data in Ethan's father's notebook with the state's geological records. The results were astonishing. The gray seam his father had marked in the map corresponded to a potential lithium deposit that could be commercially viable. Ethan's brother, Ryan, was a domineering man. He controlled the family trust and was eager to get Ethan to sign some trust consolidation documents. He believed that Ethan was unable to manage his own affairs. Ryan organized a family meeting to get Ethan's signature. My mother also caught wind of the potential value of the land. She called me, using her sweet voice to try and get a share of the money. "We brought you into this family, Addison.
We deserve a part of it," she said.
I was firm. I told her there was no share for her. We prepared for the family meeting. We retained an independent property attorney, filed a notice of mineral claim with the county recorder, and contacted the minerals acquisition firm to let them know we were aware of the potential mineral rights. On the day of the family meeting, the living room was filled with tension. Ryan sat at the head of the table, his attorney by his side. My parents sat across from Ethan and me. Ryan presented the trust documents, urging Ethan to sign. Ethan looked at the documents, then at Ryan. "I won't be signing this," he said calmly. Ryan was shocked. "This is a legal consolidation."
"You have to sign," he said.
I opened the leather folder and began to present the evidence. I showed them the certified copy of the deed that stated Ethan's grandfather had left him the mineral rights personally, bypassing the family trust. I also presented the laboratory assay report that showed the high lithium concentrations in the clay sample. The room went silent. Ryan's face turned red with anger. My mother tried to plead with me, but I stood my ground. "I'm not a payment anymore. I'm standing up for what's right," I said. Ethan and I left the room, leaving them in shock. We drove home in silence, but this time, the silence was a sign of our new-found freedom. Afterward, Ryan contested the deed, but his attorney confirmed its validity, and he ended up paying $9,000 in legal fees. The family trust retained the surface rights, but the mineral rights belonged to Ethan. We interviewed several mineral development firms and chose one with a good ESG track record. The royalty terms were excellent, and we used the first distribution to establish a foundation to support disabled individuals in our community. I returned the remaining portion of the $500,000 to my parents, with a note saying final payment. No further obligations. I set a boundary, deciding to only take their calls on the first Sunday of each month. Ethan and I didn't have a second wedding or renew our vows. Our relationship was built on a foundation of trust, respect, and the truth. On our second anniversary, Ethan gave me the pocket watch. "It's yours," he said. It was always meant for someone who could see the value in things others overlooked. Looking back, I realized that nobody gets to set your price. The people who try usually can't see your true worth. And sometimes, the most valuable things are hidden beneath the surface, waiting for someone patient enough to discover them.